Good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to our streaming of the webinar. Do you qualify for one of the COVID-19 loans or grants? Thank you for deciding to join me today. I know that each person right now is very stressed and there's just a lot going on in our environment, and there's definitely a lot of concern because there's the fear of the unknown and we don't know what is next. But I want you to know that we're here to help, and we want to kind of go through the reason we wanted to do this webinar was to help you understand what all the funding resources are that are available to you. And so at this point, we just want to go ahead and make sure that you understand all the resources that you have at your fingertips. Because what we are seeing in the marketplace now is this. It is, as soon as you submit your application, if it's incomplete or if you don't have enough information, over time, they're just going to kick it back. So if you were number 5 in line when you submitted your application, and then you don't submit everything correctly, you're going to get kicked out of the line and you have to start all over again. And so we want to make sure that you get the information so that you can get your applications done the first time around. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. What we're going to talk about is what types of loans there are that are available. We're going to talk about what grants there are available, what is coming down the pike, and what is actually next, and what forms and information you need to have available when you are completing these applications. And so I have my co-host Doc, who is going to share our slides. So we can go ahead and get started. So Doc, next slide, please. Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of what is out there right now. There is the Small Business Administrative, the Corona EIDL loan. Is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Then last week, they passed the CARES Act, which has a Paycheck Protection Loan program, as well as a grant of $10,000 associated with it. On the state level, most states have started to push out disaster loans and disaster grants. Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, DC, North Carolina, New York have all initiated programs that provide relief and will provide relief for small businesses. However, it is important that you understand the difference between the state programs and the federal programs, as well as there are stimulus payments coming. The stimulus payments are going to be anywhere from $600 to probably $2,500. Those will start to come out during the week of during mid-April, after April 15th, because right now the government is actually running slow because many of their people are out sick as well. And so there's that. And then tax returns have been extended through July 15th. But please beware that all states have not extended their deadlines. So it is still important that you file an extension. Next slide, please. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the difference between a loan and a grant. The loan, anytime that you get a loan from an entity, it has to be repaid. There are going to be repayment terms. There's going to be interest. There's going to be a payback period, and you're going to have to make most likely monthly payments. You also will have to have your business plan and financial statements. With a grant, you do not have to repay it. Most likely, they're going to require you to report outcomes. So, for example, for most of the grants that are available now, you have to show how many people you're going to keep employed, or you have to do a narrative to explain what you're going to do next. Also, the grants require project plans to explain what your future plans are and how you're going to utilize this money. Next slide, please. So first up is the SBA Coronavirus Economic Injury Disaster Loan. This was the very first loan that came out from the federal government. It is unusual in nature because the SBA usually does not administer loans unless there is a physical disaster. In this case, most of our businesses have not, there was no earthquake, there was no big storm, or no tree fell on your business. We are experiencing peril. So that's why it's economic injury. This one, To qualify for this one, you have to have been in business as of February 15th, 2020. Even though the loans, they're eligible to give you up to $2 million, on many calls with the SBA that I've been in for the last 2 weeks, they have consistently said they are only going to give you up to $500,000, up to $500,000 for phase one. Because on phase one, they're trying to get the loans out quickly. And so in order to feel safe, they only want to give out $500,000 is a max for phase one. Now, what they've also said is there's going to be another phase where if 500,000 does not work, they will give you a second loan for additional funds. There is no owner's guarantee or $25,000 or less. And I believe that the act is in the works to take that number up to 200,000. So what that means is you, as the owner of the business, if it's approved, you would not have to you wouldn't have to sign over your home or any of your additional assets as long as you get a loan of $200,000 or less. The interest rates for these loans are, if you're a small business owner, it is 3.75%. If you are a nonprofit, it's 2.75% because they want to make sure that you have the ability to pay it back. The term is up to 30 years, which is highly unusual because most commercial loans are only for 10 years. And so because they're trying to make sure that people have the ability to repay it, they have given you a 30-year term for this. And there is 1 year's worth of payment deferrals, meaning you will not have to make a payment for the first year from the date that you get the loan. But, however, interest will accrue. So they will accrue interest on the loan, but you will not owe any payments of that loan. You can use those funds for working capital, paying fixed debts, payroll, accounts payable, any bills that you have. This is what that loan is for. And I'm just going to take a brief pause break here. We have quite a few people on the call. So if you have questions as I'm going on, please drop them in the chat section and we will make sure that we answer your questions at the end. But again, so this is how the economic injury disaster loan is working. So next slide. I'm actually going to give you an example of the amount. Doc, can you go to the next slide for me? I'm sorry. So the EIDL amount, the calculation is as such. If you have a business and you had $100,000 in revenue, what the SBA is going to do is they're going to take your cost of goods sold, and most of us have service businesses, so you're saying, I don't have any cost of goods sold. You actually do. They're going to take the cost of your people and your direct expenses related to that revenue. They're going to subtract it out. So in this case, that would be $60,000, and they're going to give you 6 months worth of expenses. That is how they're going to calculate your loan amount, is by taking revenue minus your cost of goods sold, coming up with your gross profit amount, and then giving you 6 months worth of expenses. You must have proof of this information. They're going to either take it from your tax return or your profit and loss, but you must have that information. Next slide, please. What do you need for the EDL? So the first round, what they've done, they said that they got, the very first time they issued the loan, that they got 8,000 applications in 48 hours, which caused the website to crash. So what they've done is they put out a streamlined application that will take you 15 minutes the first go round. Then they're going to come back and ask you for additional documents. The additional documents are what we have here. They're going to want you to have a completed SBA application. They're going to want you to have a 4506T, which is just a transcript form that shows what you've paid taxes are, because they are going to verify your information. So they want to be able to go to the IRS and pull your tax transcript. We're going to need that tax transcript for every single person who owns 20% or more of the business. They're going to want copies of your most recent tax return. If most of you are like a lot of my clients, they filed an extension. They're willing to take 2017 and 2018's tax return, but you have to have at least 2017 and 18's tax returns. They also want your monthly sales figures and a schedule of liabilities, because they want to confirm who you owe, and they want a personal financial statement for each person that owns 20% or more of the business. In order to qualify for this loan, you have to have an acceptable credit history, and you have to have the ability to repay this loan. And that is important because a lot of people have asked me over the last couple of weeks, can I qualify for this loan? The question is yes, but they're not going to give you $500,000 if your business only brings in, $50,000. They're going to make sure that whatever amount they give you, that you can repay. And so it's important that you give them accurate information so that you can get the correct amount, and that you don't stress yourself or your business or put yourself in a situation that once we do come out of this, that you owe so much more money than what you expected. Next slide, please. Next up is the Paycheck Protection Loan Program. What is this? This is what was passed last week that has the $2 trillion attached to it. There's a lot of confusion about this particular program, so I wanted to dig into this in detail. This, you have to have, who qualifies is any business who has 500 or less W-2 employees, and also nonprofit organizations who have 500 or less W-2 employees. This loan is for a max of $10 million. And they will forgive up to 8 weeks of the loan amount if you retain your employees. That means you have to keep people on payroll. The loan does have an interest rate of 4%. The term on this loan is only 10 years, and their payment deferrals are from 6 months to 2 years. It's important to note that the use funds for this is very specific. You can only use this for payroll-related costs or rent and mortgage and utilities. That is it. You cannot use it for other operating expenses. In addition, you cannot pay people salaries of over $100,000 or more. So you do have to be mindful of this Paycheck Protection Loan Program, because while it seems like it's going to give you more, in some ways it limits you. And if they're only going to give you 2.5 months worth of salary and expenses. Next slide, please. So again, this is the Paycheck Protection Program. They're going to give you 2.5 times of your average monthly payroll costs, subject again to eligibility and limitations. This program is intended to assist businesses in retaining employees. So the emphasis with this loan program is retaining employees, paying their health insurance, paying your rent, and any health benefits. A portion of the loan is going to be forgivable, but it's only for an 8-week period. And so as a result, the whole loan, I've seen things on the news that say the loan is 100% forgivable. It is highly unlikely that the loan will be 100% forgivable. They may forgive a portion, but it probably will not be 100%. Next slide, please. What is needed? Now, the difference between this loan and the other loan is that the first loan, the EIDL loan, is administered through the SBA. This loan is through your bank or through a bank. So each bank is supposed to set or will have its own loan package. So I'm giving you the basic information that they all will most likely ask, but each bank may have its own specific forms that they may ask you for that are not encompassed in this list. So at a minimum, they're going to ask you for your payroll reports, your healthcare costs, your retirement funding, your profit and loss for 2019. They're going to ask you for your mortgage and rent statements, your utilities, any organizational documents, meaning your articles of incorporation or your articles of organization if you're an LLC or partnership. And then they're going to ask you for many other details, because the banks, you figure this law passed and this became law last Friday. They're still trying to figure it out. So they will ask you for additional forms. They have, to get this loan, you have to have acceptable credit history, again, a proven ability to repay, and then they will ask you for collateral for loans over $200,000. So the payments are deferred again on this loan for 6 to 12 months. And so this loan is slightly different from the other one. Next slide, please. To give you just a brief example, I won't go through all the numbers, but in this slide, I've calculated with the same information as we had before. If you do this loan, they would only give you 2.5 times what your payroll is, which comes to $20,000. Whereas on the other loan, we were looking at $30,000. So this loan does net give you less money. However, if you have employees, you should and you could apply for both loans, because if part of their payroll is going to be forgivable, you do want to make use of the loan that is available for you so that it makes sense and you can keep people employed, especially right now. I mean, spirits are low. There's a lot going on. People are wondering where their next dollar is coming from. If you can, and it makes sense for your business to keep people employed, then make use of these loans to make that happen. Next slide, please. So there is a missing slide in here, which was for the EDL grant. If you apply at the federal level and you are a sole proprietorship, a single member LLC, a corporation, a partnership, you can be anything. The government is offering a grant of $10,000 as long as you have proof that you were economically damaged by this COVID-19, which I believe all of us have a blanket statement that we were damaged in some way, shape, or form, because some of our businesses may never be the same. And so you can apply for that grant for $10,000 and they will ask you to substantiate it, and that is what we can do. On the state level, there are plenty of state grants and loans. So all businesses and nonprofits, and I just want to say this, we kind of know that it's bad because usually nonprofits would not qualify, but nonprofits qualify for almost every loan and grant that is available. You may possibly, each state is different. Some want you to have employees, some do not, it doesn't matter. What is consistent about the states is that they want you to have an office in their state, and they want you to be in good standing with the state, meaning you've paid all of your state taxes. If there's a personal property tax return or any type of other return, they want it to be up to date. So with the state and local programs, there's a max of usually between a min and a max of $25,000 to $200,000, depending on which state you're in. Portions of the loans are going to be forgiven. Again, you have to be able to explain what the situation is. But if it is a loan, the interest rate is going to be 4% for small businesses. The terms are up to 10 years, and most states are deferring payments, again, from 6 months to a year. The use of the funds for state grants and loans, again, the focus is on payroll at the states because they're very concerned about keeping individuals employed and making sure that we don't just have massive layoffs and people that cannot pay their bills. So the focus at the state level, again, is on payroll costs and then mortgage, rent, and utilities. Next slide, please. The basic forms you'll need, again, we want to confirm that your business is in good standing with the state. They're going to want to know the date your business was started. Almost all of the loans and grants are going to want a profit and loss for 2019, and at a minimum, your tax return for 2017 and 18, your mortgage and rent statements, utilities, organizational documents, and the details are, some of them are still finalizing their details, like Virginia. I saw a couple of Virginia people on the line. Virginia has not rolled out a grant and loan program yet, but I know that they will in the coming weeks because this is still an ever-evolving situation, and they all want a narrative of the loss. So even if your state hasn't rolled out anything yet, you want to apply for the federal grants and loans and just have your packages ready because you can utilize them again for the state programs. Again, they're going to want acceptable credit histories and an ability to pay, and then collateral. Next slide, please. I'm going to actually send this slide out because there is the where to apply. This is very important. We've given you links for each of the loan types. What I will say for the Paycheck Protection Loan, I would have you start with your bank. Your bank is the best. Your bank and your banker is the best person to start with because the loan packages for them is going to be specialized for each bank. So I would call your banker today, even if they don't have the program ready to roll out. Ask them what the preliminary stuff is that you need to start gathering. Use this list that I've given you as well, and get on their radar so that as soon as the package is ready, you are the first one in line that they call or notify that it's available so that you can get on their list, because all of this, we're not really sure how long this is going to last. So we need to be applying for everything that is applicable for your situation. and also start looking at budgets and making sure that you can handle whatever amounts of money you are going to borrow. And I want to make sure that you all have the resources and know that we are here to help, because again, the packages that you're going to put together, some applications are probably, some of them I've looked at them are simple, and some of them start off easy, but then they're going to come back for a second round and want you to have documentation. So it's important that you have all of your documentation in order. And so if you need help, we are here to help. So now we're going to go into the Q&A section of this. I see a question from Dr. Shauna. I know there's a lot of options for businesses with employees. Do they recognize contractors? Yes, they do. The initial SBA loan, the EIDL loan, is open now to self-employed people and contractors. And so if that is your situation, you should apply specifically for that loan. If you're in a lot of the state loans, they're focused on employees, but I would do both. I would be applying for the state loan, and also states have expanded the rules for unemployment. So I also would be applying for unemployment as well, because they've expanded the rules and they are allowing contractors and people who are self-employed to actually seek unemployment and get approved for unemployment during these different times. Okay, I see. Next question. What happens if a small business can't afford to pay the high cost of payroll, but is considering giving stipends and paying benefits, but can't afford payroll due to lost income? So what I would say is, if you give stipends, you're not going to be able to qualify for the loans that the state is giving you, or that paycheck protection loan. So it has to run through payroll. I would actually encourage you to maybe reduce the hours and make sure that you are paying payroll costs, so that you can show the reports and show the before and after, to show that actually is your story about economic injury. So instead of giving them a stipend, if they were working 40 hours a week and now they're not working at all, maybe pay them for 10 or 15 hours, so you can pay the hours that you have, and then the payroll taxes. And I did forget to mention, there is a plan in place that they're working on. They're still finalizing the details that will allow you to not have to pay all of your payroll taxes as soon as you run payroll, but to defer them to the end of this year and to 2021. And so if you find yourself in that situation, because of the way some of the loans are structured, I'd almost always encourage you, if you can, if it makes sense for you, to go ahead and put the people on payroll and just reduce the amount you're paying them, so that you can still get credit and have some of that forgivable loan amount. So I see a point of clarification. I'm just going to read this question. It says, I work at a nonprofit. Let's say the average monthly payroll over 12 months is $200,000. If we took out $400,000 loan and 8 weeks of payroll is $400,000, is there a reason why the $400,000 wouldn't be forgiven? I think I'm getting thrown off by the numbers. Is there any reason why the $400,000 would not be forgiven if it's applied to payroll? No. If you got a loan for $400,000, I'm just going to keep it simple. If you got a loan for $400,000 and you used it all $400,000 for payroll, then that whole $400,000 could be forgiven, as long as it was within an 8-week period. So it has to be consecutive weeks. So if you get the loan, just for numbers' sake, if you get the loan on January 1st, they're only going to use the payroll from January 1st through February the 28th. That would be your 8-week period. You can't pay people and skip weeks and all that. It has to be consecutive weeks, and it has to be within that whole 8-week period. And whatever you spend, they'll forgive that. Now, someone asked me, is the $10,000 grant you mentioned different from the DC micro grant? It absolutely is, because the $10,000 grant is actually from the SBA. So there's a DC grant and an SBA grant. So that's why I'm encouraging people, if you qualify, apply for both, because we don't know how long we're going to be in this situation. And so it makes sense to get as much as you can. And if you don't need it, even if you wind up getting a partial grant and a partial loan, if you don't need it, you can always turn it back in. And I've always been of the mindset that it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, especially in these very, very challenging times. Next question. You mentioned federal and state loans. Where's the information on the federal grant? I'm going to actually send that out. It's going to be the EIDL grant for the federal loans. What happens is when you apply for the EIDL loan, there is a box you check in that initial application that says you want to be considered for the $10,000 grant. They have not put up a separate website for that. So if you have to apply for it through the EIDL loan process, but it is basically a check the box system. I will drop the links for the payroll protection program in the chat box. The next question is, if you owe taxes, do you still qualify? Absolutely, because what they've done at this point is they've suspended student loan payments. They've actually put IRS payments on hold. They're not doing any collection activity at this point. And these loans, they will ask you, if you owe, but as long as they've mentioned, as long as you're on an active payment plan, they won't hold it against you. Now, if you haven't been paying the taxes, I would assume that that's going to be a problem, which is why they're looking at your tax return. But if you're in an active payment plan and you're working to pay off the taxes, that should not be a problem. Next question. You mentioned you need tax returns or P&L from 2019. So your business or LLC must be started by February 2019. No, yes, you're right. But in the legislation, how it's written, they say you had to be in business as of February 15, 2020. So they basically they may fund small amounts for businesses that were started in 2020, but you would have a much bigger hill to climb than most people. And thank you, Andy, for posting the COVID disaster loan link. I appreciate that. Can we pay staff less hours if they're getting unemployment? Actually, no. So it's either one or the other. If you're paying staff, and because you're going to get charged for unemployment, you cannot actually do both. So you're either going to pay them or they're going to get unemployment. But if you pay them, it's going to reduce how much unemployment they get. So you kind of have to decide which one is going to be more beneficial for them. What I said was you can reduce how much you pay your staff. So, and you can actually defer the payroll taxes until 2020 or 2021, so that it gives you an opportunity to make sure you're holding on to your money. The government doesn't just want to take your money. At this point, this is probably one-time opportunity where they're willing to allow you to defer different tax payments. So you can pay someone less who's on your staff and defer the payroll taxes. But that would then give you the opportunity to qualify for the Paycheck Protection Loan. Next question is, what if you're an LLC without employees and a little profit? Which is the best program to sign up for? I would say sign up for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, because what they're doing is they're looking at your revenue minus what your cost of goods sold is. And so most people will qualify. And they've even said they are automatic, because they're so anxious and they want to help people, they are willing to give you the $10,000 with very little criteria at this point. So you should apply for that at a minimum, just to keep the business running. The other thing to keep in mind, I'm just going to pause here. The other thing to keep in mind is, even though they're not asking you to personally guarantee this money, you definitely want to put a budget in place, because if, God forbid, I hope it doesn't happen to anyone on this line, but God forbid any business has to shut down, they're not asking for a personal guarantee, but I promise you they're going to come after you personally if this money is not used correctly, or if you're no longer in business. They're going to want their money back. Should you only request the amount of payroll up to 100,000 on the Paycheck Protection, or just exclude the people who make over 100,000? You can do either, or you can just adjust their salary. So when you go for the forgiveness part, they're only going to give you up to 100,000 per person. So the rest of it you can pay from one of the other loan sources. They're just not going to forgive it over $100,000. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it say like you can't pay someone. It's just that they're not going to consider it for the loan forgiveness part of the loan. Do I need to report my extended line of credit loan? So each of the loans or even grants is asking you to report your liabilities. Yes, you would tell them about your extended line of credit, but they're not holding it against you. They just want to know what you have out there simply so they can factor that in for repayment purposes. So if you already, a lot of our clients and a lot of people on the line that I know already have existing loans, they're not concerned about your existing loans. They more so just want to make sure you have enough, they're pushing out enough cash to keep businesses afloat. So your existing loans are going to be put on hold. And by the way, if you have an existing loan, you should be calling your banker today, asking them to put a deferment in place for those payments that you owe and put all of that on hold. That's all part of this budget process. We need to get very lean and very mean so that you can survive. So paying payments on an interest on money that you can't actually use at this point is not part of that plan. So you should be calling them, asking them for deferment, and asking them how they're going to work with you during this very stressful time. They're saying tax filing is automatically delayed, but you mentioned we should still ask for an extension. That is because the federal has set up an automatic delay, but each state sets its own tax filing deadlines. Some, like in Maryland, have chosen to follow the federal. So we're automatic. If you're in Maryland, you have an automatic extension. But DC, for example, and Virginia, neither one of them as of today has said they're following the federal government. So technically, if they do not, and you do not file an extension, they could at a later point come back and charge you a late fee. So as a result, people that we have in our system that we know that are in different states, we are filing extensions just to be on the safe side. It doesn't hurt anything, doesn't bother anybody. But I don't want any of our clients to be in any way damaged because there was a misinterpretation of the law or a state is not following the federal government. So we are just being safe. So that is I'm telling you to be safe. So it's completely up to you. Would you advise churches to apply for the EIDL? Actually, churches are excluded from the list. They will not. That is one thing they have said. They will not allow churches to apply actually for any of these loans unless they have a separate arm that is a 501c3 corporation, and then that economic development corporation could apply for a loan, but the church itself cannot apply for a loan. So I'm getting confused with the SBA 10K and the EDI 10K. That's actually the same thing. So there's one $10,000 loan that's available, and that is from EIDL, and it is through the SBA, and that is where that loan originates from. What would you advise a small business that can't afford to make payroll? I would advise them to apply for the EDL application today, because what they're saying is the $10,000, they're trying to get it out relatively quickly. They say they're going to get it out within 3 days, but I haven't seen that happen yet. What I would do in this case is I would apply for these loans and maybe run payroll instead. I would notify the employees that they're not going to get it on this day, but as soon as this payment comes in, I would run a payroll to kind of help. And then also, because I know who you are, Maryland has a similar program that you can do the same thing. So Maryland has another $10,000 grant, because that can actually help to offset some of this. And if you need to during this time, I think you just have to be very open and honest and transparent with people. And if they need to go on unemployment for a week or two while you get the funds together, that's just what needs to happen, because we have to be smart and safe, because we are trying to make sure that when this is all over and the smoke clears, that your business is still up and running and that it makes sense. Yes, I will be sending out the slides. I'll be sending out actually the whole presentation to you guys. So again, if you're in Maryland, there is a state grant for $10,000, but you have to have employees. And also, if there's a federal grant, but you have to apply for the SBA economic injury disaster loan in order to even qualify for the $10,000 grant that they have available. And I will provide the link for the, so I'm going to send out an email to all the participants after this, which will include the slides as well as the links. One of the slides has the links to all of the programs that are available. And what I would say is this: we are definitely here to help. We are, as of this later this week on Thursday, we're going to actually be doing a webinar to walk you through how to work on the forms, and any questions that you have can be answered at this time. So if you're interested in a program that will help you walk through the paperwork, we're releasing that this week. We're going to drop we just put the link in the chat box. So if you're interested and you want to make sure your paperwork is right from the beginning so that you do not get kicked out of line and that you stay in your place in line and you're able to get your money as quickly as possible, we are definitely here to help. And we'll be providing additional information to you. And yes, Blair, that's a great question. We are providing cash flow projections for people and budgeting assistance for people who need help to see what is available, what you may need to, where there's some fat, or where we may need to make cuts. So please definitely let us know if you're interested. And we put the link, and the link will also be in the email that I send out with the slides. If you're interested in a program that helps you to walk through these forms step by step, that is what we're doing later this week. Thank you so much for your time and your questions. They were great questions. We appreciate all of you, and we are thinking of you, and we are going to get through this together, because that's what we don't have a choice. We are here. We're here to help. We're in this together. Thank you and have a great day.